Hey there, welcome to Life Noggin. You know, one of the most amazing facts about our bodies is that every single one of us has a secret code, a completely unique identifier that is with us our entire lives. This identifier is hidden in plain sight and can be replicated exactly, but it takes a little bit of scientific know-how to figure out what it is. So today we're going to take a deep dive into the body's secret code and how scientists use it to solve crimes. Are you ready to get those brain cells melted? Let's do it. Humans have been trying to identify each other throughout history by recording all kinds of different traits. Back in ancient times, people kept track of identifying characteristics such as moles, scars, and tattoos. During the Middle Ages, they would record someone's physical features like their height or hair color. And in 1823, a man named Johann Christoph Andreas Meyer began to record the shapes of people's ears as a form of identification. However, none of these methods were foolproof and were oftentimes inaccurate or incomplete. Then in 1880, Sir Francis Galton published an influential book called Fingerprints, in which he advocated for the use of fingerprints as a more reliable means of identification. Galton was particularly interested in the uniqueness of fingerprints, and he argued that no two individuals had the same fingerprint. He also developed some of the first techniques for classifying fingerprints. Although Galton's work was groundbreaking, fingerprints weren't widely used as a form of identification until the early 20th century. Today, fingerprints are commonly used for identification in criminal investigations and border control. But what makes them so special? What is it about fingerprints that makes them so unique? Well, it's a combination of genetics and biology. First off, let's talk about the patterns. There are three main types of fingerprint patterns: loop, whorl, and arch. A loop pattern is the most common type of fingerprint. These fingerprints have one central point from which lines radiate and they form loops around this point. Whorl patterns, on the other hand, have two or more points from which lines radiate and they form spirals or circles around these points. Arch patterns are the least common type of fingerprint. They don't have any central points and instead form a simple arch shape. Now, while all three patterns can be found on all humans, the likelihood of any two people having the exact same combination of patterns on all their fingers is incredibly small. That's because the formation of fingerprints is influenced by a variety of factors during fetal development, including genetics, amniotic pressure, temperature, and nutrition. All these factors interact to create a unique fingerprint. In fact, identical twins who share the same DNA can have different fingerprints. That's because even though they have the same genetic code, the environment in which they develop in the womb is not exactly the same. For example, they may be positioned differently in the womb, which can affect how their fingerprints develop. This environmental influence on fingerprint development was demonstrated in a study conducted in the 1970s. Researchers scanned the fingerprints of 15 pairs of identical twins. They found that in only one of the 15 pairs did both twins have the same fingerprint patterns on all 10 fingers. In the remaining 14 pairs, the twins had different fingerprint patterns on at least one finger. This suggests that environmental factors play a significant role in shaping our fingerprints. However, if you're wondering how much your fingerprints change over time, the answer is not very much. Fingerprints are very stable and they remain relatively unchanged throughout a person's life. Even if a person loses a finger or has a finger amputated, new fingerprints will still form that are unique to that person. This stability is due to the fact that fingerprints are formed in the dermis layer of the skin, which is below the epidermis layer where sweat glands and hair follicles are located. The dermis layer is more stable and less prone to changes over time compared to the epidermis layer. But how are fingerprints actually used to identify people? Well, when someone's fingerprints are scanned, a device captures the ridges and valleys of the fingerprint. This creates a digital image that can be compared to other fingerprints to determine whether they match. Fingerprint scanning devices can capture fingerprints in a few different ways. The most common method uses an optical scanner, which illuminates the fingerprint with light and captures an image of it. Another method uses a dynamic contact scanner, which applies pressure to the fingerprint as it is being scanned. And the third method uses a passive contact scanner, which does not apply pressure to the fingerprint, but instead relies on the person holding their finger still while it is being scanned. Each of these methods has its own advantages and disadvantages, but they all result in a digital image of the fingerprint that can be analyzed. The analysis of fingerprints involves comparing the scanned fingerprint to a reference fingerprint. This can be done manually by a trained analyst or automatically using specialized software. When comparing fingerprints, analysts or software look for matches between the ridges and valleys of the two fingerprints. If there is a high degree of similarity between the two fingerprints, then they are considered to be a match. The accuracy of fingerprint identification can vary depending on the quality of the scanned fingerprint and the experience of the analyst. However, it is generally considered to be a very reliable form of identification. In fact, there are many cases throughout history where fingerprints have been used to solve major crimes. One famous example is the case of the Daragazi Khan murders, which occurred in Pakistan in 2004. In this case, a group of men entered a village and killed 13 people before fleeing. The police were able to obtain fingerprints from the crime scene, but they were unable to identify the men responsible for the killings. The case went cold until 2006 when a new team of investigators took over. Using advanced fingerprint scanning technology, they were able to identify one of the suspects, a man named Imran Ali. Imran was convicted of the murders and sentenced to death. The case was the first of its kind in Pakistan where a conviction was based solely on DNA evidence. Another case where fingerprints played a key role was the 2004 Madrid train bombings. In this case, several bombs exploded on commuter trains in Madrid, killing 193 people and injuring more than 1,800 others. The Spanish authorities were able to obtain fingerprints from some of the bombs, and they matched them to a Moroccan man named Jamal Amadin. However, it was not immediately clear whether Jamal was a suspect or just a witness. Further investigation revealed that Jamal had been involved in planning the attacks, and he was eventually sentenced to over 2,000 years in prison. So we know that fingerprints are unique and can be used to identify people. But why do we have them? There are a lot of theories out there, but no one really knows for sure. One theory is that fingerprints help us to grip objects more easily. The ridges and valleys on our fingerprints provide a textured surface that increases friction, making it easier for us to hold on to things. Another theory is that fingerprints help us to distinguish between different surfaces. The unique pattern of ridges and valleys allows us to perceive even the slightest variations in texture, which could be useful for tasks such as navigating in the dark or identifying objects by touch. There's even a theory that fingerprints help us to enhance our sense of touch. Some researchers believe that the ridges on our fingerprints amplify tactile stimuli, making us more sensitive to touch. Whatever the reason, our fingerprints are an integral part of our biology. They're just another example of the amazing complexity and precision of the human body. So now it's time to put your knowledge to the test. Answer the following questions in the comments section below. What are the 3 main types of fingerprints? How are fingerprints used to identify people? And what is one theory as to why we have fingerprints? If you want to keep learning about the amazing intricacies of the human body, stay tuned for more episodes. And remember, you are the amazing and intricate one. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Hey there, thanks for watching Life Noggin. If you liked this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe and watch more. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member through the link in the description.